and we are certified and compliant with the open meetings laws. Any public comment? Tyler, Shannon, you want nothing? No? All right. How about communications? Mayor, are these a few of yours or Dave's, or who's got these three on here?
Well, the Wisconsin Women's Business Initiative Corporation, or WIBIC, they just gave us recently gave us a copy of the strategic plan. I'm just passing it along to you.
Okay, yep.
And then just an information only, Walmart paid us the property taxes or the property tax guarantee on June 19th. And True by Hilton paid the delinquent room tax for first quarter on June 21. So it pays to threaten to take their liquor license.
Crazy. With the Walmart one, Dave, is there, I know, how much is it that they're paying to us out?
They guarantee an assessed value. I do not remember the figure off the top of my head. But if the property is still under that assessed value, it hasn't changed since the building was constructed.
Right.
So if what the property taxes would be at that value versus the actual bill, they're required to pay the difference.
I see. Are they, because I'm assuming that they've got to be at like somewhere between 80 and 100% of value is what they're looking at, their assessed value on there. Are they looking at getting it reassessed so that it would write that, or are they just fine with writing this check?
I'm guessing they're okay with writing the check.
Okay.
Because in one way or another, they're going to pay it.
Right.
From my point of view, I'd rather have the assessed value so that we don't have to go through this process all the time, because it's out of the norm.
And it could potentially add in extra in tax base, I would assume. Maybe, is that maybe their
Well,
hesitancy?
it's in the TIF district, so.
Oh, yeah, it doesn't, yeah.
As the tax base goes up, it really only helps TID number 7.
Yeah, only until we close that one out and then.
Correct.
Okay, right. I just wonder if they would have it, if they're afraid if they reassessed it that it would be higher than what they would currently be paying at. Or
That's potentially, but I guess I've never looked into it. I have a feeling our assessor treads very lightly on that one, just because the dark store things that have been happening statewide.
Right.
I think we have a $12 million guarantee, if I remember right. And since the property value stayed the same, the mill rate's actually been going down on that. But they have to pay the difference of the assessed value versus the 12 million.
Right.
Right.
Is kind of, I think, how it was structured.
Yep.
All right.
So basically, we're getting 2 checks to pay the same amount as if they would have had it.
Well, it must make some sense for them. Otherwise, I don't know why they would, because I'm sure they've got to deal with, going through their finance department on their end of things in order to get this paid out. And
Right, I think so. What I did this past time is I actually, because we'd been sending statements to both Arkansas and the local office, this time I walked it over and talked to the manager in charge that day. So that seemed to get some action. Hopefully they have the same store manager a year from now, and she'll remember this and want to make sure it gets paid right away.
okay. All right. Anybody else on communications? All right. Fly into reports then.
Many of the reports I had already put comments on. I did want to bring your attention to the check reconciliation report. And that report is essentially the same, listing all the outstanding checks as on the bank reconciliation report. So you're getting the same information twice. I'm wondering if you still want to continue to receive both reports.
I'm thought just one would be sufficient, I think.
Okay.
Not to look at redundant informations. We all love reading financial reports here, but
Okay, I will take that out of the mix for the next month then. Other than that, like I said, I put lots of comments on the reports, explaining anything that I thought was of note. I'll open up the floor to see if anybody has questions at all.
and the comments are very helpful, so.
Good, thank you.
Let's see. There's one in a report. Of course, this isn't cooperating with me to open that report up, but I had one question on there. It was a minor question, but I'll ask it at a different time when this thing cooperates with me.
Okay, and you can always email,
Yeah.
with the question later if you can't find it sometime during the meeting.
Yeah, it wasn't anything that was a showstopper, so.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions? Anybody online? Gone, I guess.
All right. Everything is great. That's it.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move into business at hand then. I would entertain a motion to approve the minutes from the June 13th meeting. All right, motion by Greg. Is there a second? Second by Dave. Any edits, questions? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Are any opposed? All right, minutes are accepted. Next bit up is a resolution for the Magnolia Springs Wetland and Woodland Restoration Plan.
Dan, did you want to start this off?
Sure, I can start it off. So, a little bit of background on the park. The Park and Rec Committee selected the site because of the wetland and woodland and the natural features that it has, which includes there's some old growth oak trees in there that are very mature and nice, and then there's a pond, and then along with that park in Magnolia Springs, there's a trail corridor on the north end of the property that connects the park to the Lowell Park Woods, and so there's a lot of natural features in that whole area of the city, and while this was going through the process of getting approvals, it went to CARPC, the Regional Planning Commission, and they made a recommendation to complete a wetland restoration plan for the site. So that would just enhance the natural features in the park. So it's really a three-phase approach as far as what we want to do for the restoration of the property. The first phase is the development of the restoration plan. And then there's really a 3-year implementation phase, and then we want this company to develop a long-term management plan so Public Works can continue with the work and really enhance that property. So as far as the fee goes, this $3,500 is just to complete the restoration plan, and then they'll complete that this summer, and then what we could do is start the implementation phase in 2024. So the development will develop a lot of impact fees that we can use towards the plan, but right now, obviously, there's no buildings going in the ground, so it would just be like a cash flow thing, where we use the Park Development Fund money that we already have in the account to help fund this, and then it would pay it back once they start building homes and pulling permits to build the homes. So, I can answer any questions you might have, but Dave might be better for the cash flow questions, but.
Dan, is this wetland restoration similar to what we'll eventually do at KPW at the Kettle itself?
Well, the Kettle and that park is actually outside the parkland, so I don't know exactly what's going on with that.
All right.
but it's similar to what we'll be doing in the, I guess, in the south end of Eggleston Woods Park, where we're installing on Oak Savannah. It was sort of clear cut by the developer, so it's not really restoring what is already there like this. But as far as the implementation goes of things, it's very similar. So, when the restoration plan actually it gets implemented, it'll be like a lot of forestry mowing, and what they'll do is they'll make it so like the native trees, like the oak trees, flourish, and they'll get rid of like a lot of the invasives like buckthorn and those type of things.
I was just talking with somebody on the weekend about where the oak savanna and that kind of ran through this area. Lisa, you had a question though?
I did, and maybe it's in here, but how much land are we talking about? Land and wetland, total space, Dan?
I don't know off the top of my head. It might. I would have to look at the plat for the development.
I thought it was like
it's
5
I think
some.
it's roughly like 5 acres.
I think it was like a little over 5, if I remember.
Okay, that's close enough. I just was looking for a guesstimate. Thank you. Oh, it is in there, 5.5. Oh, thank you, Ozzy.
All right, does anybody have any other questions on that? Ozzy?
They won't be taking out any oak trees, will they?
No, it's the plan is, we preserve the oak trees and just really, what it does is thins out the invasives so that like the oak trees and those types of trees can flourish. Things like hickory and things like that.
But they won't be taking out any younger ones either, hopefully.
No, I'm assuming what he's saying is just the invasives that have made their way in there and maybe try to restore it back to that oak savanna that had come through. Is that what you were saying, Dan? I don't want to.
Yeah, they wouldn't take any oak trees unless they were like there's something wrong with them, so.
All right. Does anybody have any other questions on that? All right. Then I would entertain a motion to approve that restoration, the monies for that restoration plan.
So moved.
And a second by,
Second.
we'll go with Ozzy this time. All right. Second by Ozzy. I'm happy that we'll have a plan for getting that restoration in there. I think it would be definitely a shame to lose that space for sure. But all right, any other questions or comments? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
And are any opposed? All right, motion carries. We'll recommend that to council. Next up is the resolution for the second renewal period, Stoughton Utilities real estate lease.
The city actually leases to both Emergency Medical Services and Stoughton Utilities their building. The 5-year lease has expired as of February 28th of this year. So we're looking to do a 5-year new contract again with them, with a couple of changes. The last lease contract said CPI would be used, but it wasn't specific what CPI to use. So I checked with the state, and there is no Wisconsin number for BLS. You could get Midwest is about as close as you can get. So I elected to suggest to use the number that the Wisconsin Department of Revenue posts every month for allowed wage increases for non-union contracts for state. That's been out there since Act 1032 passed, whatever that was, a dozen years ago now. So that incorporates that, so we know when it is. The other thing is that for some reason, we had the contract going from March 1st to February 28th. Makes it a little bit hard to budget, so Shannon and I talked, we said, let's both change it to January 1 start date. So technically, this is a 4-year, 10-month contract.
Right.
Shannon, is there anything that you wanted to add?
Nothing to add other than what Dave said. We've talked about this. We both agreed on the methodology and the number that he's using. And what's proposed tonight is what we had budgeted for 2023. So from Stoughton Utilities, we are all good.
Thank you.
Any ideas on why it was at March 1st, or was that just like when it was?
That was probably when it
the
was
lease-
created, and
okay.
they
All right.
kept doing it
That
that way.
makes sense. All right. Okay. Anybody have any questions on that? That seemed pretty logical to move that up to coincide with budgeting cycle plus continuing on the lease, and that's just the building property, is that right? Okay. Are they still gonna do groundwater testing on the edge of that property still? Is that like perpetuity, or?
They're doing another round of sampling.
Okay, all right. All right, any questions on this resolution? All right, I would entertain a motion to recommend this to council.
So moved.
Ben, second. Greg, you want to take, second by Greg? Any other questions or comments on this resolution? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
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 And any opposed? All right, we'll recommend that one to council. Next up is a discussion and possible action regarding timing of payment to Stoughton Area Community Foundation for American Rescue Plan Act ARPA dollars.
Just looking for some direction from the Finance Committee on this one. They've got their accounting set up that they can receive the cash at any time, but they're not going to award the cash until early November, so the cash won't go out the door for whatever that is, 4 months from now. Do we want to retain it, keep the approximately $800 in interest a month for ourselves, or do we want to give it to the community foundation and let them get the interest earnings? I have no question, or one way or another, it doesn't matter to me, but I guess I just wanted to bring it up in case somebody has some direction.
Lisa?
Did I see that because I don't know if this was the original plan, that we ended up paying the postage to send everything out and?
Correct. We paid about, I'm going from memory, $232
Oh,
between
that's not a lot
printing and
either.
postage.
Does it make any difference to you as far as just getting it off the books and cleaning things up and timeline as far as you getting busier with?
It's just one
Budget.
one line item, so it's not a lot of cleanup per se. I guess in a perfect world, I'd want to keep it for a couple months yet and get the interest earnings for the city.
I'll make a motion to that effect.
Second.
All right, there's a motion by Dave, and that is to retain the ARPA dollars until Stoughton Area Community Foundation is ready to receive them.
Well,
Got it.
technically, they're ready to receive them now.
Right. But to when they can disperse them.
Okay, closer to the disbursement date?
Right.
Yeah,
Okay,
enough time so that they can, obviously act on their decisions.
okay,
Yep.
thank you.
All right, that was a motion by Dave and a second by Lisa. Are there any other questions or clarification needed on that one? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And are any opposed? And that's the final word on that one. There isn't a recommendation to council for that one, I believe. If this is
I'm-
just a finance committee action, right?
Just finance action. We can bring it to council if you'd like, but
I might like to do that just so that we're remaining transparent on a larger scale for it.
okay.
Because it just has anything to do with ARPA dollars, so I'd rather have it out in complete public forum.
Does the committee want to have me draft it, and do you want to see the drafted resolution before it goes to council?
I don't necessarily need to see that. Anybody have objection?
Okay.
Or
I'll-
Greg?
Yeah, could I suggest that it be brought up as a discussion item? It doesn't need to be brought up as a resolution, just FYI for the council.
Okay, yeah, I mean, we.
Would you like that in the consent agenda then?
No,
No? Okay.
it doesn't need to be. I don't want
But just a discussion item?
I would just put it in as a discussion item. There's no need for them to have a vote on
Okay.
it. Just,
I'll probably write up a paragraph or two on it and put that document in there then. Thank you.
if there's any objection from the council, they can actually send it back and have it brought back to next meeting.
Right, that's true.
Or if they've got a problem at council, they could just direct that it gets paid now.
Yeah, and then vote on it in that area. So I guess if it's presented as a discussion action, then.
Right, discussion and possible action.
Right. Okay. Yeah. But at least we'll have, our recommendation was to do it this way for this reason or whatever.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Next up is a resolution to amend 2023 adopted budget for the library HVAC system evaluations.
Rodney, did you want to start on this one?
Sure. So the 2023 CIP, well, the budget for 2023 includes $10,000 to do a HVAC assessment of the library. The CIP for 2024 includes $120,000 for anticipated improvements as a result of that evaluation. What we're recommending proceeding with is actually moving forward with the full design, so assessment and design, so that we can actually be prepared to do that work after the first of the year. We think that we'll actually be able to understand the total cost estimates more clearly later this year, hopefully prior to the budget being adopted in November. But likewise, this will accelerate the ability to get the project completed if we go down this path in this manner. Otherwise, the assessment was going to cost quite a bit more, quite a bit in separate, because then you would have had potentially another contractor picking it up and taking it forward and moving forward with the full design. So we thought this was probably a more logical way to proceed, and that's why we're recommending to do so.
And if this one is, you said, make the assessment and then the design on it. So if that is at this 36,000 amount, is it assumed that the work is going to exceed the 120,000?
We don't know that it's going to exceed the 120,000.
Okay.
This is really putting together the evaluation, all the bidding specifications and plans, and bidding it out. So it'll allow us to get the bids. Then we'd have to award a bid ultimately. But as we get further into the design, we can refine the budget estimate with the designers.
I see. What things are they looking to is it like tear out all the ductwork and replace it kind of thing, or
Well, we're looking
more
at-
on the cooler or the chillers and things like that?
All of the above. We want to evaluate the air quality as well as the temperature control systems throughout the facility.
Okay.
The older part of the library has less ability to manage temperatures and humidity,
Yeah.
so we're hoping to be able to do a more thorough evaluation.
is it a patchwork in there right now, like old section, new section,
Yeah,
kind
there is some of that. So
Okay.
the older part has, I'll call it more baseboard heat
All right.
and less ventilation. There is ventilation, but it's not as modern as the 1990 edition.
Okay.
So we're trying to make some improvements to the air quality overall. I'm not saying there's a problem, but humidity and temperature control is
Right.
really an issue there as well.
Critical for books and things.
Absolutely. Yep.
Although it doesn't give you that old book smell, though.
There you go.
Exactly. I mean, maybe they could spray it around or something. I don't know.
You might recall, we did upgrade the boilers
Yeah.
there, so we're not anticipating major boiler replacement, but the ventilating systems and some of the cooling equipment some of it's fairly old. So we might end
Okay.
up replacing that.
Anybody have any questions on that?
I didn't highlight, but Dave helped orchestrate the changes to the budget. Maybe he can go over those
Yeah,
aspects
just
of the
a
resolution.
couple of small things. The original budget is 10,000. This will now be 36.5, so we're going to be increasing the expenditures. And it's correcting a key punch error. For whatever reason, the 10,000 was put in as public safety windows replacement.
Okay. All right, does anybody have any questions on that? We know where we're gonna run the money from. Lisa, you're putting your mic on. You got a question?
Oh, no, I was just actually going to go ahead and make the motion
Oh,
to
all right.
recommend approving to council.
All right, Lisa made the motion, Greg will second. Any other questions or discussion on this one? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
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 And any opposed? All right, here's to that old book smell.
Thank you. This does go to council tonight?
Yes, it does.
Thank you.
All right, next up is a resolution to amend the 2023 budget for Sustainability Committee.
Excuse me. As I was working with the Sustainability Committee, the books originally showed that they were in deficit mode now for the year, and the chair brought up a question, and that led me to look. We had assumed that a certain amount would be carried forward in the budget. That's what showed, but we never did the look back, so this is now the look back to make sure that the Sustainability Committee has all the funds in the 23 budget that they're entitled to.
All right, and this was from that 10,000 originally earmarked?
Correct.
Okay.
Any questions at all?
Lisa?
Just one, maybe a technical question, but since we're down a couple of council members and it says budget amendments require approval by 8, does that change any with?
Well, it does and it doesn't. Alder Venegas is still on council right now, so when we are with 11 council members, due to rounding, it will still be 8. After June 30th, unless somebody else comes on the board, then it goes down to 7. I had to ask the attorneys for verification on that.
All right, anybody have any other questions on this? All right, I'll entertain a motion to recommend to council.
Make a motion, we recommend to council.
All right, motion by Ozzy, is there a second?
Second.
Second by Lisa. Any questions on that, on what we're doing with this resolution? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, we'll recommend that one to council. Last item up is resolution for the acceptance of tax incremental districts financial statements dated December 31st, 2022.
Our audit firm prepares that compilation every year, which we use to prepare some reports to the Department of Revenue. Past practice has been that whether it's Stoughton Utilities, the city, we ask the council to accept all the audit reports, so that's what this resolution is doing. For those council members who are physically present, I gave them a hard copy of it, and it was also in the packet. So I'm going to open up the floor. Does anybody have any questions at all?
I think we have to change the title on this one.
Oh, yes. As I was stealing from a last one for a template, I forgot to change the title. Thank you. We'll get that corrected before it goes to council.
For everybody's sake, even though I think most have seen it, could we do just a quick review on what lands the TIDs are responsible for?
Okay, and Rodney, correct me if I'm missing anything. TID number 4 is basically the downtown district. TID number 5 is the railroad corridor, Depot Hill, whatever you want to call that. TID number 6 is the Business Park North. That's the one that we're trying to expand for Emmy Roth.
Yep.
TID number 7 is Kettle Park West. TID number 8 is the Riverfront Development, which was split off. It used to be part of TID 5. And TID 9 is for 51 West Development. And we're assuming it'll be TID 10 coming sometime this year or next year, either one, for STI Holdings for the corporate headquarters for Stoughton Trailers.
Right. All right, thanks for the recap on that.
Yeah, and TID 4 is the next one to close, right?
Yep.
I think the expense period is over.
Yeah, the expense period for any construction or anything like that, it has closed. Going from memory, it's 26 when that TID closes out. There will be probably a small surplus at the end of the day, which then I'll have to confirm with Ellers if we can do it again, but my hope is that we would then donate that surplus to TID 5,
Right.
which is definitely underwater right now.
Is that the one is it eligible after that to extend it the 1 year there, or to 27, and then donate that increment over as well?
I believe so.
Okay.
And that's what I'll have to confirm with Ellers. That'll be a project in the next couple of years, but
Right.
in my mind, that's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah, and I think once 5, when we get a little more vertical on that, that'll help right that ship a little bit.
Yes. A little bit, not much. Right now, that TID 5 has almost a $600,000 deficit, so
Yeah,
TID 4 is definitely not going to give them that kind of money.
right.
Yeah, the only thing in TID 5 right now is Elvinstead, and I think
Okay.
that was set up on like a 30-year schedule, which is basically the full length of the TIF to pay back. So really, there isn't any other construction going on right now, and aid, we're hoping to do along the river, and once that starts, I think hopefully that one will right itself fairly quickly, but, we have to get it going.
Does
And 6, the business park, is positive right now. Without the, we envision it will start going negative in the next couple of years, but with the Emmy Roth addition, that should help right that one.
Right, and then I saw Grosso they at least had the things, or the last 2 buildings foundationed out. I had seen that one. So.
Right, so the construction going on this year will be in the calculation, for the next year for their letter of credit.
Okay, yeah.
A gut feel, because I don't have all the numbers available, but a gut feel is with all the buildings, they will have reached their equalized value or assessed value, which is really what we want. I'd rather have the assessed value than draw on the line of credit.
Okay, so we're probably looking to retire that line of credit then?
It's got a definite end date.
Got it, okay. Is there other acreage, Mayor, in TID 5 that could be developed, or?
I mean, help me out with that. I mean, a lot of it's right here in the tracks, but, you know, it's possible that if there's not, we might be able to amend that and add some land within that half a mile. I don't know if there is any developable land down there or not.
I'd say there's more lands that are available for redevelopment than there are
Right, okay,
greenfield type development. There isn't much vacant land.
all right.
But there's certainly some land that would be able to be repurposed and be redeveloped.
Are those, are they some of the buildings that Trailers owns? Is that?
Some of the buildings along the railroad tracks, behind the Lagarette, that area,
Yeah.
all the way to South Street.
Okay.
And then north of Main Street, all the way to the river, which includes the former IKI, where, currently that's vacant, so they're looking at potential redevelopment opportunities there. So there are some areas that I'll consider them ripe for redevelopment. Maybe starting to have some talks with some of those folks.
Okay. Is that something that RDA will look into to move along, or?
Property owners are having discussions with us, at least on one of those. And the RDA is contemplating next priorities for themselves.
We
Okay.
really would have to identify what role the RDA and or the city would play in those conversations. I don't know if we're at that point yet. I mean, we just need to understand if there's a benefit for one or the other or both to participate in them discussions. Certainly, if you have two units of government, it's another layer of bureaucracy, so we certainly don't want to impose that on there unless there's benefits to do so.
Okay. My last question on TIDS now. With 8, I know that one, like we had to extend that one out kind of far in order to make all that work out, or to kind of stay mostly positive on there. How is that? I know we were kind of like really towing the line a little bit on positive and negative, and how is that shaking out so far? I know it's really early in that one.
Well, and right now the Brink development is still in flux, is the best way to put it.
Okay.
He has indicated September 1st, he should be able to give us a yay or nay whether it's feasible to go forward. He is no longer looking at rental units, but rather condominiums.
All right.
And if they become condominiums, it would actually accelerate, the assessed value, things like that. So it's kind of hard to tell right now where we're at. If the Brink development fails for whatever reason and the RDA has to basically start over, yes, we're going to have some problems with that one because there
Right.
won't be much going on.
Okay. I might have actually gotten that 8 confused with 9. Wasn't 9 another one where we kind of had to? It got real close to.
No, 9 is the 51 West. That one's pretty decent.
Okay.
I think you're thinking of 6, the business park expansion, because if we had sold some of our vacant land, and if North American Fur Auctions hadn't gone bankrupt,
right, okay. Yep,
so we've
yep.
had some setbacks there.
All right.
Yeah, I think the challenge with 9 is we had a pretty small margin when we were having conversations about doing the workforce development on the west side.
Mm-hmm.
2 cycles ago, there was an application to get some WIDA tax credits by the builder, and they were unsuccessful, so we've lost at least 1 full season, I would say. So I'm guessing unless the value goes up dramatically, that we probably have lowered that margin even more. So we may have to really think seriously about market rate. I think we'll probably have to reassess those numbers here. The next weed application period would be January-ish. So if the developers were to do that, we'd want to, do some sort of a pro forma ahead of that to see whether or not it'll even cash flow, if that's the route that somebody would want to take.
Did they make any indication as to whether they did intend to reapply for that WIDA?
At this point, they didn't this past cycle, and you might have heard that we did submit successfully the WIDA tax credit to rehab the Greenspire, so we're excited about that. But the builder, it would be the same one that's currently doing the apartments on the east side.
Yep.
And I think that even their second building there, I'm not really sure if they're going to go vertical this year yet. I think they might be looking at the spring on the second building there, which would suggest to me that, 2024 for the west side, at least for that group. Now, there's others that have reached out to us, but as far as I know, nobody's under contract on the west side for the multi-unit. But I think, Rodney's been having some conversations with folks on the duplexes. In fact, I think there's going to be something at the Plan Commission next month for rezoning of those properties. So I think those are probably going to go forward. I'm not sure what the timetable is on that, but that's encouraging for the west side. And I know there's at least 2 of the 9 single-family homes on the west side that are under contract.
Okay. Rodney, those were in the, on 51 West, those are in that lots 1, 3, and 4, is that right?
Yeah, they're going through actually a platting process. They've already been zoned properly, but they're going through a subdivision. They're trying to create 0 lot line parcels so that they could create individual small lots with a line down the middle of each duplex unit.
Is that the one that we looked at in the last Plan Commission?
Yeah, so that's lots 1, 3, and 4. Lot 6 is the other one that's like I think it's 10 duplex units or 12 duplex units. That's one parcel. They're looking at going through a condominium platting process just to create a condominium for those, because it couldn't be parceled up as individual parcels like the lots 1, 3, and 4 can be.
Is that what they're or at least developers, they're seeing that as more positive cash flow on the condominium side rather than?
I don't know the strategy or reason for them pursuing that, but that one's actually under construction, so they've already started putting water and sewer in across that site for that particular development already. I'm sure it has to do about ownership and the ability to sell off instead of retain for rental properties.
Okay, I see. Probably for cash flow for them, I'll bet.
I don't doubt that they're trying to do it in phases, so that probably is the reason.
Okay. All right, I monopolized that whole time. Does anybody have questions? All right, then I would entertain a motion to recommend that to council, or recommend accepting this report to council. Motion by Greg, is there a second? Second by Dave. Any questions, comments on the report? All right, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
And any opposed? All right, we'll recommend that report to council. That runs us through our business at hand. We've got future agenda items, but we are chipping away at them.
Slowly but
Yep,
surely.
that's all right.
And
That's all
new
right.
things get added.
Yep. Nobody else I hope doesn't want to add anything on, right?
Yeah.
Excellent. All right, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
And second, Dave? Any questions? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, meeting's adjourned. Thanks, everybody.